The moment my husband Juan's life support was turned off, his brothers Henry and Scott and his mother Mildred moved in to claim everything we'd built together over 12 years. All I had left was an old, faded card Juan kept hidden in his wallet. I thought the balance was zero, but it ended up making the bank manager tremble with fear. Juan died 3 days ago. His life support was turned off at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and by Thursday morning, Mildred was sitting in my leather armchair wearing my late mother's pearls like she owned the place. Henry stood by the fireplace in Juan's $15,000 Patek Philippe watch. Scott leaned against the doorway, dangling the keys to Juan's Mercedes like a trophy. Our $4.2 million mansion. The one we built together, the one I decorated, renovated, chose every piece of furniture for. They were carving it up like a Thanksgiving turkey before Juan was even cold. Right, the family's snake of a lawyer slid a single document across my own mahogany table. This is Juan's will from 2019. It names Mildred as primary beneficiary and executor. Your marriage agreement was informal. He said it like I was the help. Like 12 years meant nothing. Mildred stood up, straightened her Chanel blazer, the one I bought her last Christmas, and looked at me like I was dirt on her shoe. My son was too kind to you, Amy. You were a phase, a distraction. This family's money stays in this family, and you were never really family. She snapped her fingers. Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to pack one suitcase. One suitcase, 30 minutes, 12 years erased. 2 security guards, men Juan had hired, men who'd smiled at me every morning, grabbed my elbows and walked me past the family portraits, past the kitchen we renovated together, past the bedroom where I'd held Juan's hand as he took his last breath. Scott stood at my bedroom door with his arms crossed, timing me on his Rolex, the one Juan gave him last Christmas. He smirked the whole time. I left with $47 in cash, my phone at 10% battery, one suitcase, and Juan's old wallet I grabbed from the nightstand drawer. That's it. That's what 12 years of marriage, of building a life, of loving someone, got me. But that wallet, that forgotten old wallet, held something they didn't know about, something Juan never told them, something that would make them regret every second of what they'd just done. Before we continue with this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, you're going to want to see how this plays out. And drop a comment below what time is it where you are, and where are you watching from. Let me know. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Alright, let's get back to it. I spent that first night in a $39 Motel 6 off Highway 85. The room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The heater rattled but didn't work. I sat on the edge of the bed in the same clothes I'd been wearing for 2 days, Juan's old jacket wrapped around my shoulders because I couldn't stop shaking. My phone died at midnight. I didn't have a charger. I didn't have anything. I kept replaying Mildred's face in my mind. That cold, satisfied smile when the guards pulled me out. The way Henry laughed when I stumbled on the front steps. Scott didn't even look at me. He was too busy admiring Juan's Mercedes in the driveway, revving the engine like a teenager. They killed him. I knew it in my bones. Juan was healthy. 42 years old, ran every morning, ate clean. Then suddenly he's in the ICU with unexplained cardiac arrest, and Henry's the one who signed the papers to turn off life support. Not me. His wife. Henry. I cried until there was nothing left. Then I just sat there in the dark, numb. At 2 a.m, I couldn't sleep. I went through the suitcase, looking for something, anything that felt like Juan. His jacket, his wallet. I opened it. A CVS receipt from 2019. A dry cleaning ticket. A photo of us from our wedding day, faded and creased. And then, tucked behind the photo, a blue card, faded, scratched, no name on it. Just a 16-digit number and tiny letters stamped across the bottom that said, commercial account. I stared at it. I'd never seen this card before. Then I remembered. Years ago, maybe 8, we were sitting at the kitchen table late at night going over bills. Juan pulled out his wallet, tapped this card on the table, and said something I didn't think much of at the time. Amy, if anything ever happens to me, if my family ever comes for you, use this. It's our anchor. I'd laughed it off. His family seemed annoying but harmless back then. I didn't know. I didn't know what they were capable of. I turned the card over in my hands. It was so old the magnetic stripe was barely visible. I had $23 left. The motel wanted another $39 for a second night. I had no plan, no hope, nothing. But I had this card. I decided right then, in the morning, I'd find out what it was. Maybe it had $50 on it, maybe 100, maybe enough to buy me a week to figure out what to do next. I fell asleep holding it, the only piece of Juan I had left that his family hadn't stolen. The next morning I woke up with the card still clutched in my hand. My eyes were swollen from crying. My body ached from sleeping in my clothes on top of the scratchy motel comforter. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came crashing back. Juan was gone. The mansion was gone. Everything was gone. I checked out at 9 because I couldn't afford another night. The clerk barely looked at me. I walked 3 blocks to a Wells Fargo ATM with the card in my pocket and $23 to my name. My stomach was empty. I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. I stood in front of that ATM for 5 minutes, just staring at it. What if the card didn't work? What if it was expired, canceled, empty? What if this was just another dead end and I really had nothing left? But I had to try. I slid the card in. The machine read it, asked for a PIN. I froze. Juan never told me a PIN. I tried our anniversary. Invalid. I tried his birthday. Invalid. One more wrong attempt and the machine would eat the card. My hands were shaking. I closed my eyes and tried the last thing I could think of my birthday. The day Juan always said was the best day of his life because that's when I was born. The screen changed. It worked. I selected check balance because I was too scared to try withdrawing anything yet. The machine took forever. Then numbers appeared on the screen. I blinked. Read it again. Read it a third time. It wasn't $200. It wasn't $2,000. The screen said, available balance, $18,750,000. I actually stumbled backward. Someone walking by asked if I was okay. I couldn't speak. I just stared at that screen until it timed out and asked if I wanted another transaction. $18 million. Juan had hidden $18 million on a card in his wallet, a card his family didn't know existed, a card Mildred and Henry and Scott and Wright couldn't touch. I stood there on that sidewalk and started crying again, but this time it wasn't from grief. Juan had protected me. Even in death, he'd made sure I wouldn't be left with nothing. He knew his family. He knew what they'd do. And he'd built me an anchor. I pulled out my phone, found a coffee shop with an outlet, charged it to 15%, and searched for the nearest branch of the bank listed on the card. Heritage Trust Bank, 12 miles away in the old financial district. I started walking. Heritage Trust Bank looked like something out of an old movie. Marble floors, dark wood paneling, oil paintings of men in suits from 50 years ago. I walked in wearing the same wrinkled clothes from 2 days ago, carrying a ratty suitcase, probably looking like I'd slept on the street, because I basically had. A young teller named Marcus greeted me. I slid the card across the counter and said I needed to access the account. He swiped it. His screen froze. He stared at it, then looked at me, then back at the screen. He picked up his phone and said something quiet I couldn't hear. A woman in her 50s with silver hair came out from the back. Her name tag said Mabel, branch manager. Marcus showed her the screen. Her face went completely pale. She looked at me like I'd just handed her a bomb. Come with me, now. She didn't ask. She just turned and walked toward the back. I followed her into a private office with a view of the street. She closed the door, locked it, and sat down behind her desk. Her hands were shaking slightly. Ma'am, do you know what this card is? I shook my head. I just found it in my husband's wallet. He passed away 4 days ago. She turned her monitor toward me. I saw words, but they didn't make sense at first. Account name: Okafor Rivera Contingency Trust LLC. Balance: $18,750,000. Account type: Irrevocable Trust. Sole beneficiary: Amy Rivera. Activation trigger: death of Juan Rivera. Below that was a list, 47 commercial properties, 3 business LLCs, liquid assets totaling $18.75 million. Mrs. Rivera, Mabel said quietly, this account was dormant, completely locked. It was set to activate only if 2 things happened. Your husband passed away, and your personal joint accounts showed 0 activity. Your husband built a failsafe. He knew someone might come for you. I couldn't breathe. Juan did this. He knew. He knew his family would do exactly what they did, and he'd planned for it years ago. While I was picking out furniture and planning dinners and thinking his family was just annoying, he was building me a way out. Mabel stood up and walked to a large safe in the corner. She opened it, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and set it on the desk in front of me. My name was written across the front in Juan's handwriting. Mr. Rivera left instructions. Only you can open this. No one else has access. Not family, not lawyers, no one. I picked up the envelope with shaking hands. It was heavy, sealed with red wax. I looked at Mabel. What do I do now? She sat back down. You open it, and then we figure out what your husband wanted you to know. I broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter, folded documents, and a small USB drive taped to a note card. I unfolded the letter. Juan's handwriting. My hands started shaking so badly Mabel had to ask if I needed water. I shook my head and started reading. Amy, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm guessing my family got to you first. I'm so sorry. I hoped I was wrong about them. I really did. But I've known for years that Henry resents me. My mother has always seen me as her retirement plan, not her son. I wasn't stupid. I saw the way they looked at what we built. They were waiting. I had to stop. I put the letter down and pressed my palms against my eyes. Juan knew. He knew they'd kill him. He knew they'd come for me. And he couldn't stop it. So he did this, instead. I kept reading. This trust holds everything we built together. The real estate portfolio, the LLCs, the cash reserves, all of it. It's untouchable by them. Wright doesn't even know it exists. I set this up in 2017 with a lawyer they've never met. It activates only if I die and you're left with nothing. Which means if you're reading this, they took everything and threw you out. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I can protect you now. The next part was underlined twice. Call Michael Zhao. He's a financial strategist I vetted personally. His number is 415-782-9003. Tell him, code, Anchor Protocol. He'll know exactly what to do. Trust him like you trusted me. The letter ended with one line that broke me. Don't cry, Amy. Get angry. Get smart. Build your kingdom now. I love you. Jay. I looked at the USB drive. There was a note attached in Juan's handwriting. Insurance, video, audio, financial records. If they hurt you, use this. I sat there in Mabel's office for 20 minutes just holding that letter. Juan had given me everything I needed. The money, the assets, the evidence, and a person who could help me use it all. Mabel handed me a tissue. I wiped my face, picked up her desk phone, and dialed the number. It rang 3 times. Michael Zhao. His voice was cold, professional. I took a breath. My name is Amy Rivera. My husband was Juan Rivera. He told me to call you and say, code, Anchor Protocol. There was a pause. Then his voice changed, sharper, more focused. Mrs. Rivera. I've been waiting for this call. Where are you right now? Heritage Trust Bank. Stay there. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't talk to anyone. Don't leave. And Mrs. Rivera? Yes? Your husband was a very smart man. We're going to make sure his family regrets every single thing they did. I hung up. For the first time in 4 days, I didn't feel helpless. I felt something else. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. I was going to destroy them. Michael Zhao walked into Heritage Trust Bank exactly 2 hours later. Late 30s, sharp jaw, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my motel stay. He carried a titanium briefcase and moved like someone who'd never wasted a second of his life. He shook my hand once, sat down across from me, and opened his laptop. Mrs. Rivera, I've reviewed the trust documents Mabel sent over. Juan was thorough. Everything is airtight. Now let's dismantle them. He pulled up a screen full of financial data. Your in-laws made their first mistake yesterday. Henry just signed a $2.3 million construction loan for a luxury condo development in Riverside. Scott co-signed. They're using Juan's business credit and the mansion as collateral. I leaned forward. But they don't own the mansion. Exactly. The trust does. You do. They committed loan fraud the moment they signed those papers, but we're not going to stop them yet. We're going to let them dig deeper, spend more, get comfortable. Then we pull the ground out from under them. He closed the laptop and looked at me. But first, you need to look the part. You're not a grieving widow anymore. You're a CEO. We start tomorrow. The next morning, Michael took me to a private stylist in the city. I cut my hair into a sharp bob, bought 3 power suits, Armani, Tom Ford, Theory. I took off my wedding ring and replaced it with a silver Cartier watch. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. I looked like someone who owned things, someone who made decisions, someone Mildred would be terrified of. I stopped crying. I started planning. Michael's team worked fast. Within a week, they'd tracked every dollar Henry and Scott spent. $47,000 at a Porsche dealership. Henry bought himself a 911 Carrera in metallic blue. $83,000 on Brenda, Scott's new girlfriend, a 24-year-old Instagram model. Jewelry, a new apartment lease in her name, bottle service at clubs 3 nights a week. They were spending Juan's money like it was endless. Michael showed me the reports in my new apartment, a clean, modern space I'd rented with trust funds. They're burning through liquidity. In 90 days, maybe less, they'll be cash poor and debt heavy. The loan payments will start. They'll have no way to cover them. That's when we strike. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Henry's Porsche, Brenda's jewelry, Mildred's new furniture orders for the mansion. My mansion. They were partying on Juan's grave. What's the first move? I asked. Michael smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. We make a phone call to Pacific Commercial Bank. We inform them that the collateral used for the Riverside loan is fraudulent. Then, we watch Henry panic. When? Day 68. Right when they think they're safe. I nodded. Do it. Michael stood up, grabbed his briefcase. Mrs. Rivera. One more thing. Juan left me a message when he set this up. He said if anything happened to him, I should make sure you didn't just survive. He wanted you to win. Completely. I looked out the window at the city lights. Then let's make sure I do. Michael called me at 8 in the morning. It's done. I filed a quiet lien against the Riverside project. The trust owns the collateral they used. The loan is now in technical default. How long until they know? About an hour. At 9:15, my phone lit up with a notification. Michael had given me access to a monitoring system that tracked Henry's calls. Pacific Commercial Bank was calling him. I listened to the recording later. The bank officer's voice was cold and professional. Mr. Rivera, we have a problem with your loan. We need $2.3 million in cash or proof of collateral ownership within 10 business days, or we begin foreclosure proceedings. Henry's voice on the recording was panicked. What are you talking about? The collateral is the mansion. I sent you the deed. Sir, we've received notice that the property is held in an irrevocable trust under different ownership. Your loan is in default. The call ended. I smiled. 2 days later, Michael sent me an address. Lux Cafe, downtown. Brenda's there right now, having brunch with her influencer friends. Thought you might want to pay her a visit. I put on my Tom Ford suit, the black one with the sharp shoulders, and drove over. I walked in and spotted her immediately. She was at a corner table with 3 other women, all of them laughing, taking photos of their food. Brenda was wearing a tight white dress and flashing a Cartier bracelet on her wrist. $12,000. I knew because Michael's team had tracked the purchase. I walked straight to her table and sat down in the empty chair. Her friends went quiet. Brenda looked at me, confused. Can I help you? I slid a folder across the table. Open it. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were printouts of Scott's bank account statements. Current balance, $4,200. Below that, credit card statements, all maxed out. The Cartier bracelet purchase was highlighted in yellow. Her face went completely white. I leaned in close, my voice low enough that only she could hear. Enjoy it while it lasts. I stood up, dropped $100 bill on the table. That's for your mimosa. I left. Her friends were staring at her. One of them picked up the folder. I heard someone say, "Oh my God," as I walked out the door. That afternoon, Henry called Wright. Michael's team intercepted it. Henry was screaming, "Fix this, file something, get access to Juan's estate accounts, now!" Wright tried. He filed an emergency injunction to access what he called Juan's estate assets. Michael was waiting. He walked into the courthouse with the trust documents, every page notarized and ironclad, and had the injunction dismissed in under an hour. The noose was tightening. And they were starting to feel it. I sent the email myself, formal, cold, through Michael's law firm, R.E., Settlement of Rivera Estate Assets, Conference regarding outstanding debts and property ownership, my office. 2 p.m. Thursday. Attendance mandatory. Michael had leased a corner office in the financial district, glass walls, city views, a conference table that seated 12. I arrived an hour early, wearing my Armani suit and the Cartier watch. I sat at the head of the table and waited. They walked in at 2 on the dot. Mildred first, in a cream pantsuit, her face tight. Henry behind her, jaw clenched, wearing Juan's watch. Scott last, looking nervous. Wright trailed behind them like a shadow. Henry saw me and stopped. "What the hell is this? You have no right to... Sit down." My voice was calm, cold. He stared at me. I stared back. He sat. I slid 3 folders across the table, one in front of each of them. "Open them." Mildred opened hers first. Her face changed as she read. Henry flipped through his, faster and faster. Scott's hands were shaking. "These are the real ownership documents for the mansion, the LLCs, and the commercial properties. Juan placed them in an irrevocable trust in 2019. I am the sole beneficiary. You don't own anything. You never did." Wright leaned forward. "This is impossible." I reviewed Juan's will myself. "You reviewed a decoy," I said. "Juan knew exactly what kind of people you all were. He protected what we built together from you." Henry slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane. We're his family. The $2.3 million loan you took out for the Riverside project? Fraudulent. You used assets you don't own as collateral. Pacific Commercial Bank is filing criminal charges in 6 days unless the loan is repaid in full." Scott went pale. "We don't have $2.3 million in cash." "I know," I said. "You spent it. $47,000 on a Porsche, $83,000 on Brenda, $129,000 on watches, clubs, bottle service, and your egos. You burned through it like it was Monopoly money." I leaned forward, my hands folded on the table. "Here's your option. You sign over any remaining liquid assets you do have access to, bank accounts, vehicles, personal property, all of it. You vacate my mansion in 48 hours, or I let the criminal charges proceed and I add a civil suit for fraud, theft, and wrongful death." The room went silent. Mildred's face turned red. "Wrongful death?" Wright said carefully. I pulled out another folder, thicker. I opened it and turned it so they could see. Photos, financial records, hospital documents. Juan's life support was turned off by Henry, not by me, his wife. Juan was 42, healthy, and died of unexplained cardiac arrest. This folder contains evidence that suggests his death wasn't natural. Audio recordings, financial motive, timeline, everything. Scott pushed his chair back. "You're bluffing. Try me." Mildred stood up, shaking with rage. "Juan was my son. That money belongs to this family. You were nothing before him, you were. I was his wife." I stood up too, my voice sharp. "That money was earned by me and him, together, over 12 years. You didn't build anything, Mildred. You didn't sacrifice anything. You just waited for him to die so you could take it. And when he wouldn't die fast enough, what did you do?" Her face went white. Henry grabbed her arm. "You have 48 hours, I said. Sign the papers, leave the house, or I go to the police with everything Juan left me. Choose. I walked out and left them sitting there in silence. They refused the settlement. Henry tore up the papers right there in the conference room and threw them at me. You're not getting a damn thing. I nodded slowly. All right. Then we do this the other way. I went straight from that meeting to LAPD headquarters. I asked for the homicide division and was directed to Detective Linda Vargas, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. I sat down across from her desk and slid the USB drive across. My husband Juan Rivera died 3 months ago. His family claims it was natural. I don't think it was. Everything you need is on here. She plugged it in. I watched her face as she opened the files. Audio recordings from Juan's home office, conversations he'd secretly recorded over the last year of his life. Henry and Scott talking in the study, whiskey glasses clinking, their voices low. Things would be so much easier if Juan was just gone. We could finally access everything. That recording was from 4 months before Juan died. Financial records showing Henry owed $340,000 to someone listed only as ML in his bank transfers, a loan shark. Scott's text messages to a contact saved as V, talking about making it look natural, about how much they'd pay for a clean job. Hospital records showing that Juan's life support was turned off by Henry, not per Juan's living will, which explicitly named me as his medical proxy. Henry had forged documents claiming he had power of attorney. Detective Vargas looked up at me. Her jaw was tight. How long have you had this? Juan left it for me. He knew they'd come for him. He recorded everything. She closed her laptop. Mrs. Rivera, don't leave town. We'll be in touch. 3 days later, my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Detective Vargas. We're moving. Arrests happening now. Thought you'd want to know. I got dressed and turned on the news. By 8 a.m. it was everywhere. Henry was arrested at the Riverside construction site in front of his entire crew. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, grand theft. The footage showed him in handcuffs, shouting at the officers, his face red with rage. Scott was arrested at Brenda's apartment. She came out into the hallway screaming at him, calling him a liar, a murderer. TMZ had a camera crew there within 20 minutes. The video went viral by noon. Scott crying, Brenda throwing his clothes off the balcony, neighbors recording everything on their phones. Mildred was arrested at the mansion at 6 a.m. My mansion. The one she'd stolen from me. Accessory after the fact. Obstruction of justice. The news showed her being walked out in a robe and slippers, her face blank with shock. Wright was disbarred that same afternoon and arrested for conspiracy and falsifying legal documents. His law firm released a statement within hours, distancing themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of his criminal activity. By the end of the week, Henry's Porsche was repossessed from the driveway. Brenda's Instagram went completely dark after her followers flooded every post with comments. Murderer's girlfriend? Blood money? You knew. The court returned the mansion to me legally. I had a locksmith there within 4 hours. I walked through every room, room by room, and felt nothing. It wasn't home anymore. It was just a building where terrible people had lived. I put it on the market the next day. The trials took 8 months. I attended every single day. I sat in the front row and watched them try to lie their way out of what they'd done. Henry was convicted of second-degree murder and conspiracy, 25 years. Scott got 15 as an accomplice. Mildred got 7 years for accessory after the fact and obstruction. Wright got 10 years and permanent disbarment. When the verdicts were read, Henry turned around and looked at me. I didn't look away. I wanted him to see my face, to know that Juan had won even after they killed him. I sold the mansion 2 weeks after the sentencing. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of the life I thought I had before I realized what his family really was. I bought a modern loft downtown, all windows and light, and started over. I liquidated 12 of the commercial properties and used the $9.4 million to launch the Juan Rivera Foundation, scholarships for first-generation college students. Small business grants for people trying to build something from nothing, the way Juan and I had. The remaining properties generate $240,000 a year in passive income. I became a real CEO. Running the portfolio, Juan left me, making decisions, building something that mattered. Michael stayed on as my CFO and business partner. Nothing romantic, just two people building something we believed in, something Juan would have been proud of. On the 1-year anniversary of Juan's death, I went to his grave. It was early morning, quiet, just me and the groundskeeper in the distance. I knelt down and touched the headstone. "I got them," I said quietly. "All of them. Henry, Scott, Mildred, Wright. They're all in prison. And I built something better with what you left me, something good. Something that helps people instead of destroying them." I pulled out a single white rose and placed it on the grave. Then I set down his old wallet, the one I'd found in my suitcase that first terrible night. The card was gone. I'd kept it in a safe deposit box at Heritage Trust, a reminder of the day everything changed. "That card saved my life," I whispered. "It became my anchor, just like you promised." I stood up, brushed the grass off my knees, and walked back to my car. The sun was coming up. I had a foundation board meeting at 10 and a site visit for a new scholarship program in the afternoon. I had work to do, a legacy to build. Juan had given me everything I needed to survive. Now I was using it to make sure his name meant something more than just the family that tried to erase him. I drove away and didn't look back. So, here's my question for you. If you discovered your family had done something like this, would you fight for justice no matter how long it took? Or would you walk away and start fresh somewhere new? Drop your answer in the comments. I really want to know what you would do. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because I've got more stories coming that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.